See what you made me do? Shout out to old Jews and old rules. New blacks with new stacks. I already been the king. Retroact, I'm just bringing it back like Jordan Packs. New money, they looking down on me.
Hijabis, or may I call them Muslim women. Who are they? Muslim women who are oppressed, being forced to wear headscarf and never get any freedom or liberty. They cannot take their own decisions. This is what we know, and this is what we think that is the face of hijabis. Is this a true face? Let's see. First, we will meet two Muslim women, Malika and Maryam, and let's see what they have to say about their experiences.
My name is Malika. I just graduated from De Montfort University, International Business and Globalization. I'm 21 years old and I live in Birmingham. I'm a Muslim, I follow Islam. I've been wearing a headscarf for just over 3 years now.
Hello, my name is Malik. I am a PR specialist for Walpole Publications and I am a Muslim.
When I put on my scarf, I kind of went, I put on my scarf but I didn't tell anybody, and then I put it on at the start of Ramadan, and my family were obviously extremely happy for me, but as well as them being happy, I felt happy within myself that I was strong enough to make this decision and overlook what everyone else was saying, overlook all the negativity, and it just makes you a stronger person because you make a decision and you stick to it, and you feel like rather than oppressed, you feel like you have more freedom for the fact that you did put it on. I just know that I changed myself. I became more religious because I thought that once I started wearing a headscarf, I had to represent Muslim women in a better light. So I became more religious myself. I started praying 5 times a day. I also listened to a lot of lectures, and I wanted to learn more knowledge about my own religion. I think the behaviors of people changes more when I put on the scarf. The reason why I put on a scarf was I just learned more about my religion. I was just young and I didn't really know much about it because we follow what our parents follow, but I wanted to study my own religion, and I wanted to put on a headscarf, and I didn't want people to be like, why did you put on a headscarf? And I wanted to be like, just because it says in my religion. I wanted to give them a specific reason as to why I did it, and if anybody had any questions for why I did it, I wanted to have a proper excuse and proper reason for that. Because one, it says in my religion, that's first and foremost, but secondly because it protects us as women from many things. Before I wore a headscarf, you get a lot of unwanted attention from guys, and a lot of people didn't know that I was Muslim, and they wouldn't know unless I told them that I was Muslim. The headscarf is a visual for people to see, like they wouldn't have to ask me whether I'm Muslim or not. They would just look at the way that I dress and the scarf on my head, and they would be able to tell that I'm a Muslim straight away. Yeah, I mean, when I did put on a headscarf, everyone asked me what was the reason, and it was purely because I wanted to. My parents have never ever told me, you should definitely wear a headscarf. I've never felt any pressure from anybody in my religion or in my family to tell me to put on a headscarf. It was purely on my decision, and I don't think any woman that puts on a headscarf feels the need, does so because she's been forced into it. I think a large majority of people who put on the hijab is purely for their own reasons and out of their own will. And I don't think it stops you in anything. Like, I've graduated, I'm going to pursue my career, we drive, we buy a house, we do exactly the same activities, we go to the gym, we go out with our friends. I think it's exactly the same. Like, I think I would still be doing those same things if I wore the hijab or if I didn't wear the hijab. There's absolutely no difference in the things that I'm doing with my life right now.
Every time people look at me, they never assume that I'm a Muslim. Just because I don't wear a hijab. I've got a Quran in front of me right now, and I always keep my Quran with me. It's something that makes me feel better as a person, but also, just because I don't wear a hijab doesn't necessarily mean I'm less of a Muslim. It's just because I choose not to wear a hijab. It doesn't state in the Quran. I've read it thousands of times. It doesn't state that you have to wear a hijab. It's totally your choice. Okay, I think that Islam is based on 5 pillars. If you don't respect those 5 pillars and you don't follow them, then that's questionable whether you belong in Islam or not. But to say that a hijabi is different to a non-hijabi, first of all, you shouldn't be judging, and I think that we lead very similar lives. It's just a piece of cloth that hijabis choose to wear. That's all it is, and I think we need to accept that and embrace that. If I choose not to wear a hijab, it doesn't concern you, and it shouldn't concern anybody else. It's just the way I live. Whereas if a hijabi wears a scarf, she shouldn't be judged. Fashion has always been a hobby of mine. Like, it's something I'll always remain doing, even though I don't do it in my job. I constantly look at Instagram photos and I follow fashion bloggers, and I do have a fashion blog. I'm always out and about. I love going to fashion museums, love Alexander McQueen, a British fashion icon. He's amazing. Yeah, fashion's like a big hobby of mine, but also sports. I love running, keeping fit.
No experience makes me regret wearing a headscarf. I mean, now the media's perception of Islam is quite different, and I heard a lot of stories from sisters who have been affected in a negative way by people slandering them and telling them to get out this country or to get off the bus because their people don't, because our people shouldn't be, you know, in this country. But myself, I haven't experienced any of that, and I'm quite grateful for that. A lot of girls on Instagram have contacted me and they've asked me how I tie my scarf, and when they want to know how to wear a scarf. And I think it's great that people can come to me and feel comfortable to ask me these questions and to ask me about my headscarf and to ask me why I put it on, and to just use that as a positive experience and maybe put it on themselves. And I've recently launched my blog, and a lot of people have asked me about it and have asked me to help them style the hijab, or asked me to make videos of how I put it on so that it would help them.
And in today's society, you do get those people that judge you very quickly. A lot of the media portrays Muslims as almost being really isolated from everybody else, not accepting the Western culture, yet we still do. And I think a lot of fashion bloggers like Dina Tokyo change that perception. And you should embrace fashion, but it's not whether you're Western or anything. Fashion is an art form, and I think hijabis nowadays do embrace that, and the hijab is a very beautiful concept. But some people think that because you're Muslim, you're very restricted in certain things. Now, I've been given freedom. I've been given so much freedom from my parents. But yeah, I respect that. Islam has taught me not to judge others, but at the same time, don't judge me just because I don't do the things that you'll be doing. At the end of the day, we're all free to do whatever we like to do. And I think one thing about Islam, it teaches you to respect one another. And I think that respect somehow got lost in translation.
In the workplace, it's completely the same. I mean, I guess it's different perceptions. Like, people expected me to not interact, and I guess people, it's not in the workplace that they change, it's the things that they say. So they feel like they can't talk about religion, or if there's something that's in the media that's going on about Muslims, they feel like they can't ask me because they don't want to offend me. But at the same time, I'm very open and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But I've made really good relationships in my workplace, and I think everyone's quite accepting. I don't know why they have this perception, but I definitely think that the media plays a large amount into giving this perception to the wider public. I mean, if people personally don't know any Muslims themselves, then that's where they get all their information from about Muslims. So if there's anybody that's ever said to me like, oh, have you been forced into it by your family, they're just people that have never ever met Muslims or that have never befriended Muslims, so they don't actually have anybody to go off in a real life situations. They just get all their information from the media, and then that's the judgments that they make. But if I was to speak to them right now, I'd tell them that, you know, their information is correct, and if they really wanted to find out more information about the hijab, go and ask a girl that wears the hijab. Don't go to the media and listen to what they're saying. Go find someone that wears a scarf, and I guarantee you they're pretty friendly and they'll tell you that, you know, they put it on for their own reasons and their experiences of it. My experiences are different from every other girl that wears the hijab, but for the reasons as to why we put it on, it's purely based out of our own free will and because it says in our religion.
I think hijabis are constantly attacked. Like if you watch the news, there was a recent attack in Australia. It's happening worldwide nowadays with hijabis, and it's just amazing how a hijab, it's a piece of cloth at the end of the day, a cloth. Like I've got a scarf at the back of me right now, all it is a cloth. Just because you're covering up your modesty, it's like, for instance, I'll cover up in a totally different way, but these women are covering up the way they like to cover up. Because we live in a free country, I think we've got that right. If you want to cover up, go ahead and cover up. If you want to show everything, go ahead. The way they make out like these representations in the media of how bad it is and what it portrays is terrible. And I think that hijabis are so passionate about Islam that they still wear it, and it just goes to show that there are a lot of people like hijabis that are better than other people in society because they won't judge you. Like you can go and attack them and say why they wear hijab, they won't then they'll carry on walking. And I think they're so clued on and feel accepted in their own right to Allah. They obey Allah, they don't obey you, so they wouldn't even care what you have to say about the hijab. I think that's what it's come to now. Like seriously, there's a lot of people that don't care about your opinion. They're like, yeah, they brush it off because that's what society has become. It's become a place, a very dangerous place where people, hijabis especially, have to brush things off like this. And I don't think they should be brushing it off. They shouldn't even be put into that situation. Like, for instance, of not being accepted. Like, we all should be accepted. If there's people walking around tattoos, goths, different types of people, they're in their own right. They're expressing something different in society. If all of us were the same, society would be boring. And I think we need to embrace ourselves.
They both were real life examples, and this is what they have seen. But I thought it will be better to have someone who have been dealing with media or who has always been in the limelight or have seen how it is actually living in the media. So we interviewed Shaista and Shalina Jan Mohammed. Let's listen to them. Shaista Aziz is a journalist and a writer. She says that in general the perception of the women in headscarf are meek, weak, one-dimensional creatures who don't have personalities, views, or real lives. The hijab defines everything about them. They often become the hijab. Many people are unwilling or unable to see beyond the hijab. The perception has been around for a long time, and the dominant narrative and image of women who wear the hijab feeds further into this perception. I don't see it changing a great deal in the next few years at least. The hijab and Muslim women's choice of clothing is becoming more and more political, especially in Europe. I wear hijab for my personal reasons, and I have been wearing it for almost 12 years. I feel content and comfortable about wearing a headscarf. I've had so many experiences, too many to recount. I do not anticipate or expect there to be a reaction to my hijab as I go about my life. But there is frequently a reaction in the many countries I've worked in, Muslim and non-Muslim, Eastern and Western. The reaction ranged from intrigue and surprise to shock and horror, and of course there's the experiences at international airports, passive-aggressive reactions mostly. It is a woman's right to decide if she wants to wear a hijab, and if she does not want to wear a hijab, it is a personal choice, and it should always be a personal choice. A piece of material doesn't define anyone, let alone a woman who chooses to wear a hijab.
My name is Shalina Jan Mohammed, and I'm a writer. I feel wonderful choosing to dress in this particular way. I'm expressing something that's so important to me in the society I live in, and that it's something important to say for myself, but also for those around me. So it's a really wonderful and uplifting experience. I really enjoy it. Well, certainly my own experience has been that people are quite surprised that we have our own voices, that we have opinions, and that actually we go about quite normal day-to-day lives. That's been the reception that I've seen in my own life, but also to the book. And I think when people meet a woman who's wearing a headscarf and see that she's actually just like any other woman, that's the real surprise. Absolutely, I think it can be changed. And again, my own experience has been either from the book or when I've spoken to people, that they realise that by expressing our own anxieties, our own experiences, and being really honest about it, that actually we are going through very similar struggles to everybody else. And actually it's building that human connection that's really important. So absolutely, I think that opinion can be changed and should be changed just simply by reaching out our hand and expressing who we are as human beings. The important thing to emphasise, of course, is that it's absolutely my own choice, and it was something that I decided for myself that I wanted to wear. I've been wearing it for so many years I don't even want to tell you, because then you'll know that I've been around for centuries and centuries. But for me, it's really about expressing a modest way of being, about dressing in a way that doesn't deny that women and men can dress beautifully, that we have aesthetics, but that there's a certain way of interacting in society that we want to uphold, and that applies to both men and women. And for me, that involves covering my hair as well as my body, so I'll wear things that are long sleeved, that are down to my ankles, to just preserve a certain sense of modesty in the way that I present myself to people around me. It's such a great question about why we start to do things that are not the norm in society, and for me it was about something that was important, something that is an act, that is an expression of who I am on the inside. So because I decided that's what I wanted to be, it felt very straightforward and it felt very easy. And I think for a lot of women it can be a struggle, because we're trying to do something that isn't the norm around us, but once you accept that that's who you are, it actually becomes very easy. And I think for people who haven't had that experience, or for a lot of women who try and wear a headscarf but don't have that emotion behind it, that spiritual driver, it can feel a very strange experience because it's dressing in a different way. But when you have that idea of why you want to do it, that intention, then actually it becomes quite straightforward. That level of perception that sometimes there's a negativity towards a Muslim woman, there is a certain sense that perhaps I'm ignorant, that I can't speak English, that I don't have my own voice, that I'm being forced to dress like this. These are all the kind of experiences that I have, and for me it's just about addressing whoever's got that opinion, setting them straight, and then moving on. That's been the way that I've dealt with it. There's a historical background that Muslim women have been seen over many centuries as oppressed by Muslim men and oppressed by Islam, and that's probably due to the political interactions between the Western world and the Muslim world. Because as soon as you elevate somebody to the status of personhood, you would immediately ask them about their experiences. So Muslim women are often seen as things, a property to be somehow won between the Muslim world and the Western world, and that's extremely frustrating, of course. But we are seeing more and more Muslim women expressing their own voices, and actually some of those voices certainly having an impact. The voices that uphold the view that Muslim women are objects within the Muslim world and to be liberated tend to get more coverage, but that is changing, and that's a really exciting thing, because a lot of Muslim women are stepping up to expressing who they are in the kind of environment that this discussion is going on.
Last but not the least, Mrs. Gurad. She's been the most experienced.
My name is Mrs. Gurad. It's Mrs. Gurad, and I'm married. I've got 8 kids, and the eldest is 24, and the youngest is 5, nearly 6. So as you see, I'm a very busy mom. I also have been teaching French. And I've been doing interpreting, Arabic and French as well. I think women wearing hijab in the UK is, personally, and first of all, it's a personal choice. I mean, if you look at it into the terms of religion side of it, women have to wear hijab. You have to cover yourself when you go out. There's 2 surahs in the Quran. The first one is Surah An-Nur. Nur means, it's an Arabic word which means light. And where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, He said to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the women have to, to cover yourself when you go out, to be identified as Muslim. And that's the main perspective of why do we wear hijab. And the other surah or the other chapter is chapter al-Ahzab. And al-Ahzab means like a group, collective group of, you know, of people, where also was mentioned that women should wear hijab, cover themselves before going outside their, you know, their home. First, I wore the headscarf when I was 11 years old. And, you know, and I'm 40 something. I'm not going to tell you my exact age. So I wore hijab because my parents told me to do so. But then I could never imagine myself not wearing hijab, because even I was little, 11 years old, but you know, I still had that feeling that yes, I have to wear it. And it's not because everybody was wearing it, because where I come from, a lot of people didn't wear hijab at that time, you know. Women are very much used to go outside without covering the head, and even wearing, you know, very, very Western, you know, style clothing, I mean. So never, you know, have been influenced in one sense of, you know, that I will, oh yes, I won't wear it, I will take it off, you know, sorry, or things like that. I did like it, and I still like it, and I feel it's like wearing hijab is my, it's like an honor, it's dignity, it's everything. It gives me power. Wearing hijab doesn't stop me from going outside, from mixing with people, from getting to know people that I'm living around with, and getting to know other cultures, getting to know the culture of this country where I'm living and where my kids have been brought up, and you know, and so it didn't stop me from going to university, it didn't stop me from teaching, didn't stop me from mixing, as I said, with other people. It gave me the power that I can do anything I can and I want to do. I mean, you know, my father, who now passed away, he's been like 3 years now. He's always been active in the community, doing like what we say da'wah, you know, giving da'wah to people. It's what is da'wah is telling people, you know, to come back to their deen. Basically, that's what it means, you know, and explaining to them the true Islam, not the Islam that we have inherited from our great parents. Okay, so there is difference between the culture and the deen. So that's why we needed, you know, I've been brought up in that field and in that environment. So I've seen myself, okay, automatically when I see something wrong, I have to say, that's not the way to do it. So that's, you know, I've started working in the community centers here in England, and always, you know, very interested in women's issues and like domestic violence and stuff like that. And even in terms of the hijab, you know, wearing the headscarf, I haven't seen an ayah, a verse, which ayah, okay, a verse in the Quran that says you have to force your wife, your daughter to wear hijab. It's completely up to her. You explain to them, you tell them what they have to do and how they do it, leave that to them. Do not interfere. But what do we see? We see a lot of parents putting forcing their daughters, forcing the moms, forcing the sisters, forcing the wives, which really contradicts the Sharia and contradicts, you know, what the Quran really says and what we've learned from the Prophet. So that made me, you know, no, I have to go everywhere, and I have to spread this word around the women, you know, and raise awareness as well. You know what? I get really sad when I hear in the media, you know, and I always follow the programs on the BBC and other channels as well. So, you know, when you hear stories and the journalists and the media speaking on our behalf, that we are women who wears hijab, and as you can see me, I'm even wearing the niqab, which, you know, oh my God, you know. So when I hear those stories, it make me really, really sad. I don't want the media